Hello friends, welcome to Mom, the Hindu News Analysis session presented by Diksha Space. Today in this session, we are going to look after December 24th, 2020, The Hindu newspaper. Today's first article, Kane Energy wins arbitration award. This article we are discussing in the context of an arbitration tribunal that was a 3-member body which consisted of an Indian nominee or Indian government nominee also has unanimously ruled that India's claim of 10,247 crore in past taxes over 2006 and 7 its internal reorganization of the company was not a valid demand. On that basis, India has been asked to return $1.4 billion to Kane Energy PLC of UK. So before going into the analysis of this article, we will understand about International Court of Justice, which is also known as World Court. It is one of the 6 principal organs of UN which settles disputes in accordance with international law and gives advisory opinions on international legal issues. International Court of Justice is the only international court that adjudicates general disputes between countries and rulings opinions serving as primary source of international law. International Court of Justice was successor to Permanent Court of International Justice, which was established in 1920 by League of Nations after Second World War. Both League and Permanent Court of International Justice were replaced by United Nations and International Court of Justice. So all member states of United Nations are party to International Court of Justice statute and may initiate contentious cases. The understanding or the fact need to be understood is that the International Court of Justice is the only principal organ not located in New York City. It is located in Hague, that is in Netherlands, at Peace Palace. Official working languages of International Court of Justice are English and French. So please remember these facts. These are very important. Based on that, so the arbitration or the tribunal that was a 3-member body has ruled that 10,247 crore in past taxes over 2006 and 7 internal reorganization of Kane India is not right from the Indian side. So it has asked that the government should get back $1.2 billion damages with interest and costs to the Kane India is what is being expected. So it is around 10,500 crores the government of India has to pay back to Kane Energy. Before this, if you look out in the last 3 months, this is the second loss what Indian government is going to face. The first loss was with respect to UK's Vodafone Group, which also won international arbitration against the demand of 22,100 crore. So this will be the second loss after this 3 months duration. Previously, there was another unrelated case which was levied against Reliance Industries for producing less than targeted natural gas from KG D6 field. However, the government stopped these notices after Mukesh Ambani led firm asked for arbitration against the move. So this is the understanding which needs to be developed. However, if you can see here, the timeline is provided for your understanding. In January 2014, Income Tax Department seeks an information from Kane Energy about group reorganization which was done in 2006. And in 2015, Kane Energy receives a draft assessment order from IT department citing retrospective legislation to seek 10,247 crore rupees. However, in 2018, pending arbitration proceedings, IT department begins selling Crane shares to recover dues. 2018, 3-member International Arbitration Tribunal concludes hearing of drafts, and December 23rd, Crane Energy wins the arbitration. So this arbitration was put up in the context of UK-India bilateral investment promotion and protection treaty. Under this, the Indian side, where Finance Act 2012 was amended in order to give retrospective provisions for the collection of taxes, is not right. What was the context where Crane India has won? Next article, changes to SC scholarship scheme to get government approval. This article we are discussing in the context of Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs making an approval with respect to post-metric scholarship scheme for students from SC category. There is a new funding pattern which has been proposed here where center and state will be sharing on the basis of 60:40 ratio. This is, as the government is saying, to enable 4 crore students to access higher education over next 5 years, that is 2021 to 2025. Here, the issue or the government, what it is trying to say is, it is trying to increase the involvement of center with respect to the scheme what has been given. Yes, with respect to scholarship, there has always been problems of timely delivery of scholarship to the students in order to pursue their higher education. However, with respect to solving the issue, the central government has come up with this provision is what is being said. This provision is going to increase the enrollment with respect to poorest students and ensuring timely payment and maintaining accountability. So payment and accountability are the two major objectives which are thought of will be fulfilled during these changes what are being made. However, in India we find 1.36 crore students who drop out after 10 students are needed to be brought into the net of higher education, and that is the goal of the government for the next 5 years to fulfill it. Under this changes, the scholarship will be made to directly credited into the accounts of the students through direct benefit transfer scheme or preferably Aadhaar enabled payment system. The community audits will also be conducted in order to get the feedback with respect to timely reaching of students scholarship to their accounts. These changes are going to improve or increase the contribution of center from 1100 crore rupees in 2017-18 to 19-20 to at least 5 times, that is 6000 crores will be the investment what government is going to make during 2020-21 to 2025-26. So there is an increase in the budget what government is making, that is 5 times for the next 5 years, and with the objective of attaining timely payment delivery to the students and accountability of the system how it is working in order to evolve the process of poorest students from scheduled caste category to attain higher education is what is the intention of the government. So this article what we have gone through will be helpful for us with respect to general studies paper 2, welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by center and state and performance of these schemes. So this is very important with respect to GS paper 2, and this is need to be noted down so that in future we can use it whenever in examination or with respect to the knowledge what is being required. Today's next article, free, fair and safe as the election motto. This article we are going to discuss in the context of upcoming legislative elections in Kerala, where it will be for 140 seats, Tamil Nadu it will be for 234 seats, Puducherry it will be for 30 seats, West Bengal it is for 294 seats, and Assam the elections will be for 126. If you look at all these legislative elections which are going to take down, and as there are news about mutant virus which is being seen in UK, it is possible that the same mutant or the same kind of situation can be found in any part of the world. As we are seeing that after this coronavirus pandemic, there are democratic elections which have happened from US to South Korea, and with respect to India also, there are situations where successful elections have been conducted by Election Commission of India in this pandemic situation. For that, Bihar is a beautiful example where we have seen that Election Commission of India was able to successfully conduct an elections without fear among the minds of the people with respect to pandemic. So in this article, we are going to discuss few of the dimensions with respect to free and fair elections to save the democracy. Motto which was previously, now it has to be free, fair and safe is what is being spoken here. If you look at the legislative elections which are going to be held, there will be, out of all the states, if you see, there are around 180 million registered voters in these states, and the number of polling stations will be 1,86,976 polling stations, and the people who will be working are officials, election duty, security personnel per station, then the number is going to be very huge, and the risk of spreading the virus are very high. In this case, Bihar, which is a best example with respect to pandemic situation handled well by the election commission, yes, we can do it. But there are few elements which are being spoken here. With respect to that, essence of democracy is also being articulated here by the author. So first we will speak about essence of democracy. Whether during this pandemic is it necessary to have elections or not? When it is asked, we can say that as we see that the democracy has been tested from United States to South Korea, and there are cases or there are elections which are held in India too. If you look at all these things, the people of these countries or people are ready to express their political rights or political choices without having a fear with respect to pandemic. The life which is protected without liberty is not a life worth protecting. So equally, that is life with liberty will be a pure theory if a virus of this kind we are crippled by has placed life itself in peril. So life without liberty is a life not worth protecting is what needs to be understood, and that is where essence of democracy stands. A human being without freedom and liberty to have his own political rights to be excised, then it becomes a question or disastrous for the people who are constrained or who are contained in their homes due to this pandemic. In with respect to elections, there are three elements when we look up. First is electors, second is grid of candidates who are contesting the election, and third is election making machinery. All these three together make an election. In the same way, for the pandemic, there are three players. One is protection needing public, second is grid of healthcare, third is health policy making state. So in order to contain or in order to fight the pandemic, these are three elements which are very important, as in election they are there. So to make an election successful, as these electors awareness and candidates selection and election making machinery has to be perfect, if we have to contain this pandemic, then we have to work on these three issues also. Dr. Swaminathan's words are being spoken here where it is said there is a light in the middle of this tunnel, where Election Commission of India has concluded Bihar's election and shown that it can successfully contain the pandemic and help the people to successfully exercise their rights with respect to democracy. Election Commission of India spoke with many people or other countries with respect to elections and asked them to share their experiences. Based on that, it has taken a call, and there were concerns that Bihar elections might be cancelled, but Election Commission of India made sure, which was constitutionally elected, and gave a liberty to the peoples to exercise their votes. The forthcoming elections are also of the same question, whether they can be done in the same way. When an individual who is participating in a public activity, then it becomes a moral obligation or constitutional duty of the state to reduce the risk of that hazard to as near zero as possible. It is not an extra act which is being done by goodwill, but it is a duty which has to be performed by Election Commission of India, which is constitutionally entitled of the people. So it is bound to protect against epidemic is what is being said here. So their cases, as in Bihar, we have seen that separate lines for senior citizens were made. Above 80 years people were provided with postal ballots, and number of polling stations were increased. So like that, steps can be taken for the upcoming elections also, and made sure that people can exercise their political rights with liberty and without fear of pandemic. There are three steps what author is trying to say here, or suggestions with respect to how elections can be conducted successfully. One, the personnel scheduled or drafted for the election duty and number of security staff shared will be deployed, will be given an priority with respect to access to vaccination. So access to vaccination has to be the priority with respect to personnel and duty officials who are working in the elections. Second, every voter entering in the booth should wear mask. If there is no mask, they should be sent back as voter identity card. So voter identity card and mask should be taken with same equal importance. And third, they are speaking about senior citizens. So senior citizens should be advised and enabled to vote in first 3 hours of the voting, standing in a separate queue lane, which will be provided. So elections, as we have seen, in a terror-free zone, we feel it is successful when it is happening without violence. In the same way, today the situation has come up. If the elections can be held without any epidemic being spread, then that will be a successful election. So as it is being said that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but the road ahead is still dark and long, by Soumya Swaminathan. In the same way, yes, there is a light which is being seen, but there is a lot of darkness which have to be fought together and which have to be made sure that this darkness can be overcome, and the light will help us to drive for a bright and better future India. Next article, the tightrope between production and industrial peace. This article we are discussing in the context of previous week's The Hindu News Analysis, where we have seen that the labor violence incident at Narsapura facility in Karnataka. This is in Kolar district, that is in Karnataka. There we have seen that the violence, after that it was said that Western has caused or found that 470 crores of damage was made by the laborers. However, there was an internal subcommittee or internal accountability audit which was conducted by Apple and found that there were grave mistakes with respect to labor management and with respect to non-payment of salary. On that basis, Apple has placed the Taiwanese supplier Western Corporation on probation and not giving any new orders. This is clearly a forward step where corporate accountability and ethical business operations are shown by Apple here. After the incident, Western has also apologized to workers and it has removed its vice president in charge of India's operation and initiated corrective measures to address workers' grievances. So, in this article, we are going to look after the various incidents or various dimensions of this incident, what has happened, and what is the need for today's present context in the evolving process of new investments which are coming down into India is need to be understood. If you look at the realities of manufacturing, today the high-tech manufacturing is outsourced through supply chain in global south that is built on the precarcities of labors which are involved in them. There it is continuously seen the willful violation of labor standards and practices. In Indian context, previously there were incidents with respect to the situation what is being seen today in Kolar, Karnataka Western facility. Like in 2017 and 18, there were two incidents which were reported in National Capital Region in the facility or assembling smartphones for Chinese brands. However, there were reluctances and there were no any responsibility which was taken up by the company, and the onus was put on the subcontracting firms and keeping the things in the silent mode. Today, Apple has come forward and this is a great move by Apple which has shown the corporate responsibility in the labor reforms. Because previously it was not so, since there were hired laborers from multiple subcontractors or third party which work in these firms, we see there has been a negligence with respect to who is responsible for their grievances and who will address their grievances was not clearly visible to them. And this is what is happening even today with respect to the growing high-tech manufacturing facilities in the present context. If you look at here, the China's experience is shown where labor contention and resultant violence can be better comprehended by taking into cognizance the operation of Taiwanese suppliers or subcontractors over the years in China. We have seen that many of the giants from US, Europe and East Asia are outsourcing their works to these countries in order to maintain lean workforce, unlimited supply of rural migrant labor at low wage levels, and the Chinese economic reforms has propelled the creation of offshore assembly facilities by major giants across the world. In this article, we are looking after an example of a company called Foxconn, where the labor physical and mental experiences are being exampled or explained here. It is here seen that in order to increase the number of production and in order to meet the deadlines, the companies usually operate 24/7, and the burden ultimately falls on the employers or workers of the factories. There are tight conditions of supervision, there are less number of breaks, they work overtime, but they are not provided enough salaries because they are got on subcontracting model. This condition has seen that in 2010 there were continuous news reports with respect to suicides by workers across facilities in China of Foxconn. Many of the workers jumped from the terraces of these factories and it was a daily incident which was seen. In this context, we can understand the life of the workers which was physically and mentally challenging while working in these companies or in these facilities. And another dimension we have seen, there is internship of students which is being provided. This has also become a advantageous situation for these companies to exploit the workers in for their committed development and their committed protection. As the students are provided for internship, they are not considered as part of formal workforce also, and they are not provided any social protection. The life of the employees has been very clearly shown in a book called Dying for an iPhone, Apple, Foxconn and Lives of China Workers by Jenny Chan, Mark Selden and Pun Naigai. This is a very interesting book. If you are finding any free time, please buy this book and read it, which shows an in-depth study of life's experiences of workers in Foxconn facilities. So here we need to have an understanding, and this comprehensive understanding of what we have developed over a period of time needs a clear showcase that a weak regulatory labor architecture and capacities will not help the laborers or the diversifying industry in India. And the new labor codes which are brought in the present context are actually eroding the protection what laborers are usually having as of now. So Apple, which has provided a code of conduct to all its suppliers seeking to monitor and audit compliance of labor standards and safeguards, even then the situations what are being prevalent in China and India shows that they are not correctly or strictly adhered. So the need of the hour is to create a government support or the government regulation where these kinds of incidents can be avoided, and it will help to develop a cordial relation between production and industrial peace. And the absence of avenues for workers to channelize their grievances, like previously unions and various departments or organizations were helping to come up with channelizing their grievances, but today these absences are making the problem in the labor's life. So this has to be solved at the present context is the opinion what is being presented by the author here. Next article, vocal for local. As we all know, in the previous weeks, there were elections with respect to District Development Council polls in Jammu and Kashmir. And there was an alliance of National Conference Party, PDP and People's Conference. This was called as People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration. So this has got around 110 seats out of 280, the alliance, and BJP has become a single largest party claiming 75 seats. So there were 50 independent candidates and they can move either of the islands or BJP, which has to be weighted and which can be seen in a different times. August 5th, 2019, if you remember, this was the day on which the constitutional status or the special status of Jammu Kashmir was taken away, that is Article 370, and it was provided a status and reorganization of Jammu Kashmir was done with union territories. After that, this has been the first bipolls or first polls which were conducted in order to develop the system of democratic values in the valley. However, the opposition have claimed that the poll results have shown that the restoration of the special status is the necessity or need of Jammu and Kashmir. There have been more than 30 years after which the militant outfits and separatist groups did not campaign vigorously for poll boycott. This shows that the local parties and the government is successful in maintaining peace in the region. After this, we can understand at the end that the political process which has restarted through the District Development Council polls must be given more space, and center must appreciate the role of regional parties in maintaining peace and stability. Restoration of statehood and holding the election of the assembly are vital in this region. Today's last article, an anti-science lawsuit. If you all gone through the analysis of news, you would have remembered that the three scientific publishers, those were Elsevier, Wiley and American Chemical Society, has put up a suit against Alexander Elbakan of Kazakhstan. She is from Kazakhstan, and others in Delhi High Court on December 21st, 2020. So what was this case all about? Why these scientific journals, these are Elsevier, Wiley and American Chemical Society, are chasing against Elbakan? Who is she? What is Science Hub? And why these publishers are putting the case in Indian court? For these questions to understand the answer, we have to understand how scientific publishing actually works. If you look at the scientific publishing, you have seen many of the journals, or when you go through the online, you will have to, or you will get links with respect to many of the articles which were written by scientists. So these are all online paid journals like Elsevier, Wiley, and the American Chemical Society. So here the need is to understand how this actually publishing works. So scientists who are working are usually paid by institutions, and they get grants from various other organizations, usually government ones. In India, these public institutions like various departments or ministries are providing the funding, like Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and Department of Atomic Energy, and others are actually among the other departments or ministries who are funding these scientists for their work. However, if you look at the other end, when a scientist or when a research paper has come out, the scientist seeks to publish in an academic journal. So when it goes to this academic journal, which is run by people or journals like Elsevier, Wiley, and American Chemical Society, at that time, these journals will seek peer review. What is this peer review? Review is by other scientists and take a decision on publishing. So these authors who are doing work are not paid. Neither these reviewers who are doing review are not paid. Neither the journals which are doing is online. That is not even offline, which is being printed and put up. But there is another end. These publishers actually charge the libraries who are subscribing to these journals, and which is very high. Few of the journals, they are paying around 1 lakh rupees per month per year for the subscription, whereas Indian institutions spend around crores on subscription. It is estimated around 1500 crores are paid by India wholly with respect to subscriptions. Without subscription, if you want to typically access an article, it is around $30 to $50, which comes around 2200 rupees to 3500 rupees. So academic publishing is thus a profitable industry in the worldwide. Elsevier, which parent company is RELX, had a profit of around 30% revenue, nearly $10 billion in 2019. So this is the money what we are making, and not even scientists who is writing an article or paper, not even reviewers who are doing review, peer review, they are not paid at all, but the companies are making huge amount of money. And this has become a problem for over a long period of time, and scientists or people have been channelizing their intentions to find alternative platform. That is where in 2011, Miss Elbakine stepped in with Sci-Hub. Sci-Hub was an open platform where efficient and easy use site and extensively archived published scientific literatures can be found. And with respect to India, this open source access was provided by Indian internet service providers as a common website without any privilege. So this case has been put in India for that reason, because many of the internet service providers as named as parties in the case. Today, Sci-Hub is the easiest and often the only option for many of the scientific literature accessible without any navigating institutional VPNs, and for journalists and public given the obscene per article charges which are levied by journals. So Sci-Hub is actually better option which has come down in front of the people or in front of the scientists in order to go through the content. Sci-Hub has developed as an beneficial site which is operated in other countries, not in India. However, internet service providers which are named as parties are providing non-discriminatory common carrier service. So this has resulted in a boom in research and development of dozens of vaccines in very short period of time. Sci-Hub piracy, which benefits the very people who create the content, is opposite actually of the situation in creative arts, where piracy, music or film deprives creator of royalty. Scientists are not paid any royalty for their work. So, is there any alternative to Sci-Hub? Yes, publishers should voluntarily reform their policies to obviate the need of Sci-Hub. Here, the Indian context or Indian government is speaking about one nation, one subscription system, where exchange for a fixed and reasonable cost paid directly to the government. So, scientific publishers would make their entire content available to all readers in India. At this point of time, the author is trying to say that Elsevier, Wiley and ACS should drop their misguided cases and join the Indian government in working out an equitable system of access to scientific literature that serves both their common commercial interests and Indian public. So this is what needs to be understood with respect to the anti-science lawsuit which has been put up in Delhi High Court. This is all about today's The Hindu News analysis, friends. We'll meet up with again tomorrow's new edition. Till then, take care of your health, study well. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.